A young black janitor responded fluently in Swedish, right in front of a billionaire. The next morning, he called for her. Maya's phone buzzed as she mopped the polished floors of the lavish Aurora Grand Hotel. Normally, she'd never dare pick up a call while on duty. That was rule number 1 from Supervisor Bennett, especially for maintenance staff. But this wasn't just any number. It was the university. After being rejected 5 times for a scholarship to pursue her master's in language sciences, this could finally be her breakthrough. "Just a second," she whispered, stepping behind a tall, decorative column. That's when her world flipped in moments. "Maya Thompson," she answered quietly, trying not to draw attention from the guests moving across the lobby. The voice replied, in flawless Swedish. It was Dr. Lindström from the University of Stockholm. Maya responded effortlessly, her accent smooth as they discussed the details of her application. "Min ansökan skickades I tid men kanske hamnade I fel avdelning," she explained, concerned that her motivation letter might not have been received. Then she noticed the shift in atmosphere. The lobby had gone silent. She glanced up and saw Leonard Grant, the billionaire CEO of the hotel chain, just a few feet away, watching her with raised eyebrows. Beside him stood Supervisor Bennett, eyes blazing with disapproval. Maya's heart pounded. "I'll call you later." "Tack så mycket," she said quickly in Swedish, ending the call. "Thompson, my office. Now." The words sliced through the air. The hallway to the basement-level office felt like a tunnel with no end. She felt every stare, some sympathetic, others smug. At 29, she was the only black woman on the cleaning team with a college degree, a fact Supervisor Bennett liked to conveniently overlook. "You know the rules, Thompson. No phones during shifts, especially not in public areas," Bennett snapped as the door shut. And what language was that? Spanish? Swedish, Maya corrected automatically, immediately wishing she hadn't. "I don't care if it was alien. What matters is Mr. Grant saw one of my employees chatting on her phone in the lobby instead of doing her job." The humiliation burned deep. The white front desk clerks took personal calls all the time. No one said a word, but Maya knew exactly what was happening. It was the same script, just a different day. "I'm moving you to the event hall restrooms for the next 3 months, Supervisor Bennett said coldly. "Maybe there you can speak all the languages you want, without making the hotel look bad." Maya felt her gut twist. The event hall meant endless shifts after massive business conferences. No extra pay. It was Bennett's go-to punishment for those who stepped out of line. "You're lucky you're not being fired. Now get back to work." That night dragged painfully. Back in her cramped apartment shared with 2 overworked nurses, Maya sat in silence, tears running down her cheeks as she stared at her framed diploma in linguistics and her international certifications, barely clinging to the peeling wallpaper. 6. Years scrubbing rooms, saving every cent for grad school, sending out resumes that never led to callbacks after face-to-face interviews. Still, the next morning, she showed up early, determined to stay professional even if the system wasn't. Then the phone at the reception rang. "Maya Thompson," said Jennifer, the head receptionist. "Human Resources wants to see you, right now." HR was located on the top floor, right next to the executive suites, a zone completely off limits for someone in a cleaning uniform. Inside the elevator, she stood invisible as always, surrounded by executives talking about 7-figure deals, never acknowledging her presence. "Thompson, called the HR director as soon as she stepped in. "Please have a seat." Maya sat down, rigid, bracing for bad news. Probably a dismissal. "Mr. Grant has requested a meeting with you." The owner's office was bigger than her entire home. Leonard Grant, now 45, was a legend in real estate circles, known for reviving bankrupt properties and turning them into five-star icons. And now, he was looking right at her. "Swedish, Portuguese, Italian, and Mandarin, correct?" he asked, eyes on a folder resting open on the desk. Maya blinked, startled. "How did you—" "My resume. I asked HR for it after I overheard you yesterday," he replied simply. "Honors degree. In linguistics from Kingsbridge University. Fluent in 6 languages, 2 of them Asian. And for 6 years, you've been cleaning my hotel." What Maya couldn't have known was that this moment wasn't random. What no one inside the Aurora Grand had any clue about was that the phone call in Swedish was only the beginning. The key to a much deeper truth. A truth that would not only rewrite Maya's future, but also pull back the curtain on a pattern of silent discrimination that had buried exceptional talent under layers of soap and silence. If this story of workplace injustice makes your blood boil, stick around to see how one phone call in a foreign tongue sparked a chain reaction even a billionaire couldn't control. For a few seconds, the entire office stood still. Maya froze, her thoughts racing to catch up with what she'd just heard. Leonard Grant knew her, not just as the quiet woman in a cleaning uniform everyone overlooked in the corridors. 6 years, Grant repeated, closing the folder and folding his arms. "May I ask why someone with a degree from Kingsbridge is scrubbing sinks in my hotel instead of working in global communications?" Maya exhaled slowly. "I submitted 47 applications to this hotel's International Affairs Department. Every one of them was ignored. I tried 12 times for an internal transfer. Each request was rejected." "By whom?" Grant asked. "Supervisor Bennett. And Mr. Hale, the Director of Guest Services," she replied. Grant wrote down the names without so much as a blink. "Interesting. Hale constantly complains about our shortage of multilingual staff, especially during Asian delegations." His expression darkened slightly. What he didn't mention was that months earlier, he'd secretly hired a private firm to investigate unusually high turnover among skilled non-white employees across his East Coast properties. "Maya, I'll be direct," he said. "Tomorrow, we're hosting a major trade summit. Delegates from Sweden and China will be attending. I need someone fluent in both languages. Someone who can navigate the cultural gaps." "And you want me to clean their rooms?" Maya asked flatly, her sarcasm sharp. Grant let out a quick breath of amusement. "No. I want you to serve as our temporary International Relations Coordinator. The pay is $5,000 per week, starting now." Maya nearly dropped her phone. That was more than she'd earned in 3 months of janitorial shifts. But why me? Surely there are dozens of qualified applicants. "Because I heard you speak Swedish like you were born there. Because your resume is exactly what I need, and because I have a strong feeling something isn't right in this organization." An hour later, Maya stepped into the elevator wearing a new staff badge that gave her full access to the hotel's internal systems. On her way to HR to complete the paperwork, she came face to face with Supervisor Bennett. The look on her face was nothing short of priceless. "Thompson, what are you doing on this floor without your cleaning uniform?" "Ms. Bennett, I've been appointed as the International Relations Coordinator, directly by Mr. Grant." Bennett's face drained of color. "That's not possible. You don't have the background for that. Kingsbridge graduate. Fluent in 6 languages, Swedish and Mandarin included. Maya replied calmly, her tone steady but professional. My resume has been sitting in HR for 6 years, along with a dozen transfer requests. As the supervisor stumbled through half-formed excuses, Maya walked away, unfazed. Inside the HR office, she was greeted by an unexpected supporter. Zara Williams, a recently hired recruitment analyst, offered a warm smile. Maya, finally. I came across your file when I joined 3 months ago and was stunned to see someone with your credentials assigned to janitorial work, Zara said as she helped with the formalities. I tried raising the issue with Mr. Hale, but he shut down the conversation instantly. That afternoon, while Maya was reviewing preparations in the executive lounge for the International Summit, she noticed something troubling. The printed documents for the event contained serious translation mistakes in Mandarin, some of which could easily cause major offense or cultural confusion with the Chinese business delegation. Without hesitating, she redid the entire welcome packet, correcting terminology and adjusting tone. How did you know the translation was wrong? Grant asked from the doorway, having quietly observed her revisions. The phrases used would be considered rude or overly casual in formal business Mandarin, Maya explained. The person who did this understands vocabulary, but clearly lacks cultural fluency. Grant's expression tightened. Hale assured me we had top-tier translators. We paid a premium for this. He hired someone without verifying their credentials, Maya replied, pointing to a mistranslated clause in a key partnership agreement. The following morning, the summit began. Maya moved through the crowd of international executives with quiet confidence, seamlessly translating between Swedish and Mandarin, bridging gaps in conversation and accelerating connections that would usually take weeks to cultivate. During a brief break, she felt someone approach. It was Mr. Hale, the director of guest services, a man who hadn't spoken to her once in the 6 years she'd worked under his nose. His smile was thin. Miss Thompson, I must say, I'm impressed. Bennett clearly underestimated your capabilities. Thank you, Mr. Hale, Maya replied without a smile. It's impressive how my resume, which clearly states my fluency in Mandarin, was somehow missed, especially when the hotel spent $50,000 on faulty translation services for this summit. Hale's smile faltered. There must be some confusion. I received red receipts for every single email I sent over the past 6 years, Maya cut in, calm but firm. That includes messages warning you about serious translation issues during previous events involving Asian delegations. What she didn't say was that Zara from HR had discreetly shared internal documents linking the translation contracts to Hale's niece, a woman with no verified credentials in business Mandarin, but who charged premium rates nonetheless. Worse still, all prior translation work done by her company contained similar errors, mistakes that could have resulted in multi-million-dollar losses. On the 3rd day of the conference, something unexpected happened. One of the Swedish executives approached Maya, his expression lighting up with recognition. Wait, aren't you the scholar who wrote that incredible paper on language variation in international trade? I read it in the Global Linguistics Review. Maya blinked, surprised. Yes, that was me. I've cited your work in 2 symposiums, he exclaimed, gesturing for his colleagues to join them. Everyone, this is the linguist I told you about. From a distance, Grant observed the interaction. and the way Hale's discomfort was growing with every handshake and compliment. What the director hadn't realized was that while he smiled and tried to maintain control, Maya had already begun to uncover a network of favoritism and systemic bias that went far beyond bad translations. For years, qualified professionals like her had been buried under false limitations, while padded contracts were funneled to unqualified insiders. What no one inside the Aurora Grand understood was that the soft-spoken woman who once answered a call in Swedish hadn't simply lucked into a promotion. That departmental transfer was just the beginning of something far bigger. A slow, deliberate unraveling of institutional discrimination that had silenced dozens of capable employees. The real question wasn't if Maya would expose what had happened, but just how deep the damage would run once the truth surfaced. On the morning of day 4, the hotel buzzed with momentum. Maya's initiative had sparked a wave of early agreements that exceeded every forecast, but as she crossed the main lobby, something caught her eye. Hale, walking a visibly tense young woman toward the executive elevator. "Miss Hale, your Mandarin translation will suffice," he said with a low, clipped tone. "There's no need to be nervous." The surname hit Maya instantly. The young woman clutched a folder labeled Final Translation, Master Contract. One glance at the cover confirmed everything Maya. The same critical mistakes were still present in the new version. Maya knew exactly what she had to do. "Mr. Grant needs to see this," she thought, hurrying toward the CEO's office. Grant was going over paperwork when she walked in without knocking. "Maya? What's going on?" "Hale is replacing my corrected translations with flawed versions produced by his niece," Maya explained, showing screenshots on her phone. "And I have evidence this has been happening for years." Grant stood up, suddenly alert. "Are you certain?" "Every detail is documented," she replied. "Payment records show inflated fees, triple the standard market rate, to a company with no verified credentials. Meanwhile, people like me were systematically shut out." Just then, Zara from HR entered quickly. "Mr. Grant, I'm sorry to interrupt, but you need to see this right away." She handed him a folder. 5 years of hiring records, clear pattern of rejecting qualified candidates, especially women of color. Grant flipped through the pages, his jaw tightened with each document. The external audit hinted at bias, but this is far worse. This is deliberate. At that moment, Hale barged in, interrupting without knocking. "Leonard, the Swedish reps are ready to sign, but they've noticed inconsistencies in the translations. I think Maya may have made some errors." A cold silence fell across the room. Grant walked over and slowly closed the door behind Hale. "Thomas," he said quietly, "I'm staring at invoices for $50,000 for inaccurate work, while highly qualified staff have been stuck cleaning bathrooms. That's absurd." "I don't know what you're talking about," Hale stammered. "We hire the best, your niece," Grant cut in, "who has no experience in professional Mandarin. She has a certification." "It's fake," Maya added, placing a printed email on the desk. "I contacted Peking University. They've never certified Ashley Hale." Hale turned toward her, his expression twisted with fury. "You're nobody, just a janitor playing in a league above her head. PhD in applied linguistics from Kingsbridge. 6 published academic articles, all in your company's HR files," Maya replied, unshaken. "Looks like you've been losing for years and didn't even know it." "Thomas," Grant interrupted, "I've called an emergency board meeting in 30 minutes. By then, I expect your resignation on my desk." You can't be serious, Hale chuckled nervously. All this, over that? Choose your next words carefully, Grant warned, his tone cold as steel. 2 hours later, the executive auditorium was packed. All managers, supervisors, and department heads had been called in. In the front row, the Swedish and Chinese delegates watched with interest. Bennett, the cleaning supervisor, looked disoriented among the other managers. Grant stepped onto the stage, Maya at his side. Today, he began gravely, we uncovered a deeply rooted system of discrimination and favoritism that has cost this company millions. For years, individuals like Thomas Hale and Susan Bennett have implemented unofficial policies that harmed not only our staff, but our reputation and our future. Behind Grant, a presentation lit up the screen, charts comparing employee qualifications to job roles, graphs showing rejection trends by race and gender, and inflated contracts linked to relatives of management. Ms. Thompson, Grant continued, whom many of you only knew as part of our janitorial staff, prevented this company from a massive diplomatic and financial disaster this week. By correcting serious translation errors, she likely saved us millions in potential losses. Among the crowd, a Chinese executive gave her a respectful nod, others offering quiet applause. As a direct result of this investigation, Grant announced, Thomas Hale has been terminated for cause. Susan Bennett is suspended pending further review of her role. And effective immediately, a full audit of hiring and promotion practices for the last 5 years will be launched. The room went still. Bennett stared at the floor, pale. Grant then smiled subtly. I am proud to announce that Dr. Maya Thompson is our new Global Director of Internal Communications, in charge of all multilingual operations. The auditorium erupted. Some applause was restrained, but from the back of the room where the maintenance team sat, there were cheers, claps, even tears. As she stepped off the stage, Maya caught sight of Hale being escorted out by security. His face was twisted in rage. You won't last a month, he hissed as he passed. Maya met his stare, then smiled softly. In the pocket of her new tailored blazer was a voice recorder. It held every insult, every whispered threat Hale had made as he tried to cover his tracks. That night, in her new corner office overlooking the skyline, Maya finally cried. Not in defeat, but in long-awaited release. 6 years of being invisible. 6 years of, we didn't receive your resume, and you're just not the right fit. She picked up the phone and dialed her mother, the woman who sacrificed everything for her daughter's education. I did it, Mom, she whispered through tears. What no one at the Aurora Grand could have imagined was that this was only the beginning. While some executives sat stunned, watching their old privileges unravel, others were forced to confront a simple truth. Real talent, once unleashed, doesn't just fix past wrongs, it redefines the future. The fall of Thomas Hale was just chapter 1 in a sweeping transformation that would shake not only that hotel, but the entire hospitality industry. And it had all started with a simple phone call in Swedish. 6 months later, the revolution was no longer silent. What began as Maya answering a phone now echoed through every level of the American hotel world. From her glass-walled office on the 32nd floor, she could see all of downtown. A small brass nameplate on the door read, Dr. Maya Thompson, Vice President of Diversity and Global Relations. The monthly paycheck was 5 figures, but the true power was never in the money. Restructuring Committee. "Is ready, Dr. Thompson," said Zoe, her new executive assistant, and now her closest friend. All regional directors were connected to the live video call. Maya inhaled deeply before stepping into the boardroom, where Leonard Grant and the board were waiting. It was the day of the final presentation for the Hidden Potential program, an initiative Maya had personally launched to uncover and elevate highly skilled employees who had long been ignored within the hotel chain. "The results of our pilot phase have gone beyond anything we imagined," Maya began, as data filled the screen. "In just 6 months, we've identified 147 team members with proven skills in languages, finance, management, and technology, yet placed in roles far beneath their qualifications. 83% of them," she continued, "are Black, Latino, or belong to other underrepresented groups." Grant nodded slowly. It had been Maya's condition when accepting her promotion. She wouldn't just fix her own situation. She would reshape the system itself. "And most notably," Maya said, "is the economic impact. Translation outsourcing expenses have dropped by 78%. Client satisfaction among international guests is up by 42%. And our diversity benchmarks are now leading the entire hospitality sector. And, the best part, we're achieving all this by recognizing talent that was already here, already on our payroll." Across the country, in a modest hotel in rural California, Susan Bennett watched the broadcast from a break room beside the laundry area. After months of internal reviews, she had avoided being fired by accepting a demotion and relocation. She now managed linens, a far cry from the authority she once wielded while rejecting candidates based solely on bias. "The next stage of the program," Maya continued, "will introduce a mentorship initiative. Each newly promoted employee will commit to mentoring others, creating a cycle of recognition and support." Thomas Hale was not in attendance. Since his termination, no reputable hotel chain would hire him. Accusations of discrimination and financial misconduct had effectively blacklisted him from the industry. Rumor had it he was now working the night shift as a desk clerk at a roadside inn in Arizona. As for his niece, Ashley, she had been forced to repay the inflated contracts, enroll in a professional ethics course, and was now ironically studying Mandarin, thanks to a scholarship from the Grant Foundation for Inclusive Language Learning. As Maya reached the final slide, she turned directly toward the camera broadcasting to every property in the chain. "I'd like to share something personal," she said, pausing deliberately, allowing the silence to speak before the final. "When I was a little girl," Maya began, "my mother worked as a housekeeper in a hotel just like this one. She had a college degree, but never got the chance to work in her field. She used to tell me, Maya, no matter how invisible they try to make you feel, your value doesn't depend on their approval." Maya paused, drawing a steady breath. "My mother passed away believing that certain doors would always stay shut for people like us. She never got to witness this moment, to know her sacrifices were not in vain." Across the room, many of the newly promoted employees wiped away quiet tears. "The true strength of a company," Maya continued, "isn't found in its profits, but in the people it uplifts. For decades, the hotel industry, like many others, buried remarkable talent under uniforms and assumptions. It decided who belonged based on skin tone, accents, and background." Leonard Grant rose to his feet, applauding firmly, followed by the entire room and hundreds more watching the live stream. Later that afternoon, Maya received an envelope at her desk, Inside, a postcard from Stockholm and a formal letter from the Institute of Global Linguistics, an invitation to serve as a visiting professor. It was signed by Dr. Lindström, the same professor who had called her 6 months ago speaking Swedish. Funny, Maya thought, gazing out over the skyline. If Bennett had just given me a warning that day, I might still be scrubbing floors, my degree forgotten in a drawer. The following morning, Maya officially launched a scholarship fund for hotel staff and their children, partially financed by her own salary. The first recipient? A young girl, the daughter of one of Maya's former cleaning colleagues, who dreamed of studying hospitality. What began as a single phone call in Swedish had triggered a ripple effect that reached far beyond one hotel and far beyond one industry. The message was undeniable. Talent is everywhere. What's missing are opportunities and the will to see them. True justice doesn't end with punishing discrimination. It requires rebuilding systems where prejudice can no longer hide. Maya's greatest victory wasn't watching her oppressors fall, but seeing hundreds of people just like her finally rise. If this story touched you and made you think about how silent bias holds back true talent, leave a comment, and don't forget to subscribe. We'll continue sharing stories of people who turned injustice into real platforms for change. Because, as Dr. Maya Thompson reminds, true greatness isn't just about breaking barriers. It's about keeping the door open for everyone who